Welcome to Green Building Matters, the original and most popular podcast focused on the green building movement. Your host is Charlie Cicchetti, one of the most credentialed experts in the green building industry and one of the few to be honored as a lead fellow. Each week, Charlie welcomes a green building professional from around the globe to share their war stories, career advice, and unique insight into how sustainability is shaping the built environment. So settle in, grab a fresh cup of coffee, and get ready to find out why green building matters.
Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. Today we're going to talk about solar and renewables. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've got another Atlanta native here that's all in on solar. I've got Emilie O'Leary. She's the owner and CEO of Green Clean Solar. Can't wait to kind of hear how she got into this side of our green building movement. Emilie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Charlie. Thank you so much for having me. And it's great to talk to another local here in Georgia. So I'm excited to be part of this today.
Yeah, no, it's, sometimes I work on a lead project that might not have renewables, but then I have to go over here and I just see it's booming and it's changing and we talk batteries. So we'll get to that in a minute, but take us back. So where'd you grow up and go to school?
Sure. So I grew up in Ohio in a little town called Louisville, Ohio, and loved it there. Beautiful place. Went to college at Kent State University. I majored in fashion merchandise and loved the school and go back there as much as I can to visit. They have an amazing major with not just fashion, but architect. They're also very much heavily into renewables. They have recently developed a lot of solar project at many of their campuses. So I'm really excited to follow that growth and where they're going with the school and renewables. So love the school. And then from there, I moved to Alabama. I got a job working in the fashion industry, and which was crazy because who would have thought going from Ohio to Alabama to be in fashion. My goal was to go to New York City or LA, but I got a really good job offer and moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and worked there for about 2 years and decided that I wanted to be in a bigger, better city. And Atlanta was only 2.5 hours from there. So I made the initiative and picked up everything and moved to Atlanta. And this was right before the Olympics. It was back in 1995. And I knew the Olympics was coming in 1996. And my goal was just to work and live and breathe the Olympics because I just was so fascinated that, Atlanta won the games and it was going to be here. So fortunately, I was able to get a job during the Olympic Games where I hired interpreters and translators. So clients from all over the world were there, and I had individuals that would pick up these clients and kind of show them around Atlanta and became their interpreter and translator. So I did that during the Olympic Games. And then from there, I got an amazing job working for the World Trade Center. And a lot of people didn't even know that Atlanta had a World Trade Center. The headquarters obviously was in New York City, but there's over 300 World Trade Centers worldwide. And so I worked for the one in Atlanta. So that was a very exciting part of my background.
Yeah, what a cool start. And thanks for telling us how you got to Atlanta. And for those listening that aren't anywhere near Georgia, it was so monumental for Atlanta, Georgia, really in the state of Georgia, right? A lot of the Olympic events were in different regions of Georgia, but that really caused a lot of great new development and so much more. I didn't know you were a part of that and kind of built on it and the Trade Center. And it's just fantastic. Then I've got to ask about sustainability, though. Maybe it didn't come into your career till a little later, but did you always have a bug for it? Or where did sustainability first start showing up?
Yeah, it's so crazy because, my career path is kind of all over the page. But living and working in Atlanta, I started my own consulting business. And so when I got into consulting, I started to help small to medium-sized companies really take part in their sales and marketing. Like they would hire me to increase that area. And so I worked with a contractor that did a lot of construction work in Atlanta. And we ended up partnering and started to do small scale solar projects. And this was back in like 2015. And I saw the potential of solar in Atlanta. Back at that time, I was like, this is definitely a growing field. Was definitely not as big as it is today, but I really saw kind of a vision that I wanted to get into renewables because it really was important to the city. So we formed a business in January of 2016, and our focus was completely on solar projects. Like we wanted to do commercial rooftops, carports, and solar fields. So our very first project was in Atlanta they were building the massive Mercedes building for the Falcons. And a component of that was to have a carport next to the stadium. So luckily we got hired, as a small business to build that carport. And it was so exciting. We had a small crew of 15 guys that were very good with hand tools. They knew how to build things, but we had never built a solar carport. But we got out there, we looked at the blueprints, it was right there off of Ivan Allen Street. And it's still there today. So I love to drive by it and very proud that we built that project. But that's really where my interest and how I kind of became into this industry was being able to take on that first project. And from there, it really opened a lot of doors for us.
And I love how it's been just some staple developments and buildings and projects and initiatives around our town here in Atlanta. So that's meaningful to me. So solar and renewables start coming on the scene, but just did you have any mentors too? Maybe even back to the other industries that you served, Emilie, just any mentors. Sometimes a mentor is someone we look up to, but we don't have access to. We follow them, their readings, their books. Sometimes it's someone that literally opens a door or meets with us. Any mentors along the way?
Well, honestly, my biggest mentor was my dad, and he really influenced me at a very young age. He unfortunately passed away when I was 15 years old from colon cancer, but he was an entrepreneur. I'm 100% Swedish. So both my parents moved from Sweden to the States, and he had his own engineering company. And so I saw him as, a young adult working very hard and being very professional. And, it was a challenge for him to come from another country and come into the United States and be a consultant. But he was so smart. I mean, extremely smart, very professional. And I remember going into our home office, and I would read some of the letters that were typed up on an old-fashioned typewriter. And I was just fascinated to see, his drive and his motivation. And that really stuck with me as I grew and be an adult and wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own business. So I would say he definitely had a huge influence on my life and still does, as far as what I do and how I handle customers and challenges. That I think about, how he was and how he got started and made a very big impact in my life.
I love it. I love giving a shout out to those that sometimes they don't know how big of an impact they've had. So thank you for sharing that story. Let's look back once more. What are some of your proudest accomplishments?
So when I saw this question, there's a lot of things that I have to say I'm very proud of. But when I got into this industry, I didn't have a lot of education or certificates or anything to really support the work that I do. Obviously, I came from a fashion background. I didn't have any knowledge when it came to contracting work. So I really dove into learning about what it took to get a contractor's license. So if we wanted to work in Tennessee, if we wanted to work in South Carolina, if we wanted to work in Virginia, we had to have contractor's license. So I am very proud that I have 5 contractor's license. I mean, these were very difficult tests. They had a solar component to it. And I was very nervous, but I love learning new, concepts, new regulations. And that's what these contractors license was all about. And for a woman, and I will tell you, every single time I went to these contractors license examinations, I never saw a woman take these tests. It was always sitting in a room with men. So I have to say, I'm very proud that I took those tests. I passed it. I got the certifications.
Bravo. Holy cow. That's inspiring. And you needed that. And now with these installs, these big installs, and the projects get bigger and bigger, and I'm sure it sets you up for what you're doing today, which is kind of where I want to go next. So tell us all about Green Clean Solar. Tell us kind of about your company, your team, and what keeps you busy.
Sure. So kind of looking back, when I started the mechanical solar installation company, it really allowed me to understand the process of what it takes to build these massive, whether they were rooftops or carports. We traveled all over the country. We were privileged to work on some of the best, biggest name companies, Amazon rooftops. We did one for them out in California. We did Target stores in Colorado. I did Blue Cross Blue Shield in Chattanooga. I mean, we worked at military bases. We worked at universities. Like, we went where the work was. And for 6 years, we did installations all over. And at that time, at the kind of the end of those years, we had a really growing business and no issues. Like, everything was paid for. We had a great company. And the reason I'm saying this is we decided to put the company for sale. And so we put it up for sale. Because I compare it to like the housing market. If you're able to sell your house during the biggest market, you can get the biggest bang for your buck. So anyhow, we sold the company in January of 2020. My business partner at that time, we sold it and he left, and I stayed on as the CEO for 2 years. And for 2 years, we almost tripled the size of the business and started to go after utility scale projects, 50, 60, 100 megawatt projects. And during that time, I saw the massive amount of waste that was occurring at these projects. I mean, just tons. I mean, not pounds of waste, but tons and tons of waste. And we were putting everything in the dumpsters and hauling it to the landfill. And it really struck to me to say, this is counterintuitive. Like, we're building these amazing energy efficiency systems, but then we're filling the earth with all this waste. And it just didn't make any sense because, most of this material could be recycled. So it, again, really motivated me to start Green Clean Solar. So I left that company, sold off, and started Green Clean Solar in February of this year, 2022, and went full steam ahead and really kind of hit a pain point in our industry, meaning like I knew it was just not my company that was hurting or saw that this was a huge problem that, we're throwing so much away. So when I started to market my services, my company, I've been overwhelmed with the response because people are like, oh my gosh, Emilie, we didn't know what to do with this stuff. And now we're so happy that you're doing what you're doing and you're providing solutions for this material. And what's crazy, Charlie, is that I have been called back to some of the projects that I actually built a couple years ago to go pick up the solar panels and recycle them. And I'm like, you're telling me those solar panels are still there? They're like, yeah, we didn't know what to do with them since you left. So I'm actually going back to projects that I built and cleaning up the site and recycling it. So going back to your question, as far as the exciting projects, one of the ones that we literally just kicked off is in Maui. This is a full turnkey project from start to finish where they have hired us to manage all the waste because, Hawaii, their islands, they want the renewable there, but they don't want all the waste. And, there's these utility scale projects that are bringing in 93,000 boxes and they don't want the landfill to, be overwhelmed with all this waste. So we are hired to manage the waste and we're going to recycle as much as possible on these projects. So that's one that we're kicking off. And then the other one that we're going to be doing soon is a power station out in Miami, where they are decommissioning it and completely wanting to recycle the containers, the combiner boxes, the lithium ion batteries. Like we're taking everything, putting it on truckloads and hauling it to a recycling center. And this hasn't been done before. So I feel like, we're creating a revolution here by providing solutions to these projects that they hadn't even thought they could do. So I'm very excited. We're learning a lot as we do this and all the challenges that come with it. But it's just very exciting to be part of this.
I'm blown away. And, I'd almost compare it to, if I may, like interface carpet tile, right? It's who should you send it back to? Well, where it came from. And so it's good that you already have your solar network. You literally know most of the sites and they already look to you for this. And it's like, hey, we what's the right thing to do here, right? We can't put this stuff in a landfill. And I think that's one of the areas that something like batteries on a Tesla or battery storage or solar maybe gets a black eye is, well, what do you do one day, right? It's waste. And so people like you creating companies to say, no, we can clean up that part too. And this is a viable solution. So I'm really impressed. And I'm sure you feel like you're a little ahead of it, but next thing you know, there's going to be a wave of
right.
Just a tremendous amount of business here. So on the recycling, since that's the business here, can most of these materials be recycled? I mean, do some have to be, thrown away? Is it like 60, 70% recyclable? Just, help us with that.
Yeah. So what we're finding out, when we go to these projects, we assess the material. We find out, okay, what's coming to the site and what can we actually recycle? And how we do that is every project, every state is incredibly different as far as what the resources are there. And we really want to work with the local communities, the local resources that are there, because it doesn't make sense financially to move this material, to different states because it gets very expensive. Even though I may have this amazing recycler in New York that can handle it, I can't move all that material from Florida all the way up there because the cost is so expensive. So first of all, we assess the material, find out what we can recycle, by the local resources. And then what happens is they get the material and they'll say, Emilie, for example, the plastic, the resin is very important to these recyclers. If there's mixed resin, and we found that a lot of these solar panels are wrapped with clear plastic, we can recycle that. But then they're bounded by these heavy poly bands that are green. And so we put them all together and they're like, look, we can't take those green bands. So we find that out. And then we find out that some of the pallets have these metal brackets on, to hold them together. Well, we can't chop up the wooden pallets now because they have these metal brackets on. So we have to throw that in the landfill. So there's a lot of material. And one of the things I'm trying to also do is reach out to the manufacturers and say, hey, look at what is coming into the country. And you're an influencer on the design and the packaging. Tell them you need them to recycle or, provide material around on the products that you're having come in and redesign it. So when it gets here, it's very easy and very clear on how to separate it and recycle it. So again, I'm having conversations with these manufacturers who haven't even thought about this, but they're very captivating. They're very interested and they're going back to the drawing board and they're really having very thoughtful conversations with the manufacturers and the designers to say, hey, let's rethink this. Let's use this material. And so it's great that we're able to have these discussions and make awareness to all this material, because one of the things, Charlie, is these projects in the States are getting bigger and bigger. When I first started out in 2016, I thought, 2-3 megawatt was massive. I thought, oh my gosh, this is huge. And now I'm on sites that are 100 megawatts, so they're just getting bigger, which in turn means more amount of waste, and waste that can't be recycled is a challenge. You hate to throw this stuff away. So we just need to make aware to these racking companies that we need to make changes in our industry.
Oh, absolutely. And we talked about even some of the spools with the wire, but the solar panels, one more question, then we'll look forward, is how long are they supposed to last?
Yeah, the warranty is 25 years. So when you install them, the manufacturer of the solar panels are kind of guaranteeing them for 25 years. But what I'm seeing as what I do in this business is that I'm getting phone calls from customers that, because of the technology and then the innovation of these solar panels, they're becoming much more efficient. Instead of the 225s, they're coming out with 450s, 550s. So they're decommissioning these sites sooner. It may be 8 years instead of 25 years because they want to have more energy efficiency solar panels on rooftops or on the fields. So it's definitely the length of the life of the panels, can be 25 years, but things are happening much sooner because of the innovation.
I see. Thanks for educating us today. I'm learning a lot. So I love this next question to ask a green building professional like you, a sustainability professional like you, is what's next? What are you excited about? What's kind of coming down the road?
Well, there's going to be influx of money through the Inflation Reduction Act, specifically into the energy sector. So that's really flooding the market when it comes to opportunities. We're going to be seeing new businesses, a lot of European companies that are getting into this space. They see the opportunity, so they kind of follow where the money is, right? So companies are getting merged. Companies are getting bought out. They're getting bigger, to take on these bigger projects, and land development is increasing. Some of these rural areas, I love to travel to these places because you get to see the mom and pop shops that were probably going out of business because of COVID are now thriving because of these big solar projects. So I'm really excited that, we are providing so many new jobs in this industry, and we're really revitalizing a lot of these small communities through these big projects. So it's very exciting to see the potential and the growth of just not just jobs, but, it's like a trickle effect in these communities. When you buy equipment, you rent equipment, you're increasing that production. You're going to the restaurants, because you have a crew of 100 people that are working there. So they love it. So it's a wonderful, area to be in, to see all the growth that it's affecting.
Wow. No, that's a good vision of what else is coming at us. So thank you for sharing that. Let's get to know you a little more, Emilie. What would you say is your specialty or gift?
I have to say, and my family will probably say this, especially my girls. I have three teenagers, 15, 16, and 18. And I would say my gift is being fearless. Like I love I love the unknown, and I love to kind of go after something and get it done. Like I like that drive, and I'm very motivated that if I don't know something, I'm going to explore it, and I'm just going to go head on. And a lot of people have fear, and especially if there are things that they're not comfortable, they're not comfortable in their day-to-day activities to go out of their comfort zone. But I don't have that problem. Like I'll take it head on and and find a way and go after it. So that's probably one of my God-given gifts, is that I'm fearless.
I love it. I saw that. I heard that earlier with the general contractor licensing and just, the different careers you had and now venturing out with a brand new venture that is needed. I'll validate that for you. What you're doing is needed.
Thank you.
And I'll be happy to make any introductions I can. So how about habits or routines, rituals? Have anything you could share that really helps you?
Yes. So my quote that I kind of live by is, I work hard and I play hard, meaning I always feel that, work is always going to be there. Always. I mean, there's not enough hours in the day for me to get my work done. But I find that to be happy and find your joy, you have to have a good balance in your life. And so my ritual and something that I love to do is to be out in nature. I love hiking, especially this time of the year with fall. I was up in the North Georgia mountains around Blue Ridge, and it's just breathtaking to take the moments and really give yourself a sense of peace and rejuvenate. And really the only way you can do that is to get out in nature. So I always want to have that balance and be able to take the time, carve it out of my week. And whether it's just taking a walk or going to the mountains and hiking, that's something that I must do.
Those are good. And we have a lot to offer here in Georgia. For those not near Georgia, we have all the different terrains. And luckily, we usually get all 4 seasons here, right? I just tell people July and August, humidity and some traffic that's back. Besides that, it's perfect.
You're right.
So let's talk, Emilie, about bucket list. Are there 1 or 2 things maybe on your bucket list?
Yeah. So I have a long bucket list. I'm on the 100-year plan. So I have a lot of things that I want to do in my life. My mother is 95 years old and she still loves to travel and it's amazing. And so I'm very much into cruises. And now that COVID's over, there's a lot of cruises now that are happening. And so one of the things on my bucket list is to take a cruise in South America. That's one area that I haven't explored and definitely want to, get on a cruise and go to 6-7 different ports and explore South America. So I can't wait to do that.
Thank you. I love bucket lists. Not everybody does, but I think it's adventure, it's travel, it's, who knows, write a book. Right. Speaking of books or podcasts, documentaries, is there something for our podcast listeners you'd recommend?
I do. So I'm big into audiobooks, right? So whenever I travel and have long road rides, I turn on my audiobooks. And one of the books that I read not too long ago, it's called The Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger. I think I'm pronouncing his name. He is the CEO of Disney, and he takes us on his journey in his life. And it's so fascinating. Just the way he led the company. He talks about, they opened Disney in Shanghai, China, and it took $6 billion to build. It took them 18 years to complete it. It's 9 times larger than the one in Orlando.
Oh, wow.
And when they were going to do the kickoff, they had this huge opening. He works with the leaders and the presidents all throughout China. I mean, this was a huge deal, as you can imagine. And during the same time as it was opening, there was that mass shooting in Orlando at that nightclub. Oh. And he talks about how he was, how he can balance major issues with the company and still handling it very professional. So it's a great journey to learn, about business and people who are in those leadership roles. It's fascinating what they have to balance and how they handle it. So I learned a lot from that book and just really recommend it to people who want to see a leader, especially Disney, what a fascinating company that is and how he managed it. So I love the book and it's really great to listen to it. I recommend it because it's his voice and it's not boring, and you want to stay on as long as you can to listen to it. So definitely recommend it to your listeners.
I will. I'll put a link to it in the podcast show notes. Great pick. Two more things here. One, looking back on your career, is there anything you wish you'd have known a little earlier?
I would say that what I wish I would learn is, as a society, we're so focused on, okay, you get your college degree. That's what you're going to do. That's your path. And it's really not. Like, it doesn't have to be, like what's crazy, and I'll kind of summarize this, is that, okay, I studied fashion in my undergraduate degree. I got my master's MBA. And what is crazy is, like, here I'm in my 50s and I'm I'm not doing installation anymore, but I'm working on fashion buildings, like the Perry Ellis, the Amazon, Target. Like, it's so crazy that my whole study, my career has kind of taken a 180 turn. That who would have known that, even though I studied fashion, decades later, I'm putting solar on top of these fashion buildings. So you just never know where your career may go, but be open, open to different opportunities. Even though you may study in this field, when I talk to young girls, I'm like, look, that doesn't have to be your life, explore and be open to different opportunities. Because I always feel, God opens these doors and puts people in your life for a reason. And you kind of have to embrace it and go with the flow. So that's my advice is, just be open to the opportunities that come to your way and learn a lot, and take the risks, because you never know what can happen.
Wisdom. That's amazing. All right. So let's say there's someone listening right now to your story. Hopefully they'll connect with you on LinkedIn and tell you about it. But they're just now jumping in maybe to this green building movement or to the renewables industry. Do you have any words of encouragement for them?
Well, one of the things I would say is connect with me on LinkedIn because I post a lot of great content. I have a team that does a lot of research and puts out a lot of information that takes a lot of time to do. So follow me, follow my company. You'll learn a lot and you'll see the trends. You'll see what's going to be happening in the solar industry and beyond. So that would be one recommendation is follow me and reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd love to help you or connect you. I have a lot of followers and lots of great, amazing clients. So if I can help you, I would definitely be happy to connect you with other people that I know.
Well, Emilie, I know that you're willing to share and connect people, and you've been doing this a while. So don't be bashful to our podcast listeners. Reach out. And that's what this industry is about too, just collaborating and sometimes just having an encouraging conversation like we've had today. So Emilie, thank you for your time, and can't wait to just continue working with you in this green building movement. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure, Charlie. You have a wonderful day. Appreciate your time.
I just want to say thank you to our loyal listeners. We actually are celebrating over 1 year here on the Green Building Matters podcast. Me and the entire team were stoked and just so glad you continue to listen every Wednesday morning to a new interview with a green building professional here in this industry, or just some pro tips that we want to make sure that you are getting straight from us, straight to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Green Building Matters podcast. At gbes.com, our mission is to advance the green building movement through best-in-class education and encouragement. Remember, you can go to gbes.com/podcast for any notes and links that we mentioned in today's episode. And you can actually see the other episodes that have already been recorded with our amazing guests. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Tell your colleagues. And if you really enjoyed it, leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on next week's episode.